Hello and good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here and to start us off. Like I said, I am Crystal Preston-Watson. I am this senior digital accessibility analyst at Salesforce. And today I am going to talk about Accessfuturism, digital accessibility in 2032. 10 years from now, if you didn't, if you're like me and have to think about that, it's like, one, that is only 10 years from now, and it's kind of amazing. And yeah, so again, this is my title slide. You get to see all it's just my name, a actual graphic of me, an illustration of me, and just to kind of describe who I am. I am a Black woman, early 40s. I have I wear an eye patch because of a visual impairment. And then this slide also has my social media, my Twitter handle, which is Scopic Engineer, and then also LinkedIn, which is, if you want to connect with me there, is Crystal Preston-Watson. Just to let you know, going forth, I'm not going to describe all the images in this presentation because honestly, most of them do not really add any sort of context or information to what I'm talking about. There is just, for those who can visually see, is something to stare at if they want to do that. Anything that actually does have any context or I think is worth doing, I will definitely describe going forth. So Accessfuturism, like I came upon this, and on the screen is actually it says Accessfuturism. It's in the style of a dictionary entry, and so it says Accessfuturism noun, and then it does the spelling out of the syllables and also how you would pronounce it. I think that is correct. I took it from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, so hopefully I did that right. But Accessfuturism is something that I think I created. You never know with the internet these days. So I might be getting a cease and desist a couple minutes from now. But what that means to me and what it invokes is I've taken this from Afrofuturism, which is a movement like in literature, music, art that kind of uses science fiction and other aesthetics to explore the Black experience and history and culture. And so what I see with Accessfuturism is a way to explore disability and accessibility in through kind of a futuristic science fiction way that doesn't take away or try to hide or make disability better or cure disability, but really kind of goes into what what the future might be if we take disability and not trying to hide it or really just accept that disability that's something that is, and it's not inherently makes someone inherently less than or any sort of negative connotation. But what does the future kind of look like? So that's how this talk was inspired. So with that kind of a definition, let's take a trip into the future and load ourselves into 2032. And on the screen is a DeLorean car, futuristic kind of 80s aesthetic from the movie, especially reminiscent of the movie Back to the Future, where they use a DeLorean as a time machine, to travel back to the future. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. So my first kind of prediction, and the first thing that we will see in 2032 is caption and transcript integration into devices. On the screen is a person that is recording a video on a smartphone, and on the smartphone is captions that says cutting veggies in the air is cool. It's because the person is holding a knife trying to cut a cucumber in the air, which is something that you probably should not do. And this is something where we're right now in 2022, we're concerned, very much so and very needed about captions and transcripts being included in multimedia. Right now, that's something that is very hard for accessibility professionals to really have people get and do on a widespread, manner. And so something I do think is, and with the technology and how things are going, one thing that I think we will see in the future is that these captions and transcripts are going to be generated within in media files. So in video files, and audio files, and in image files. Those things are going to be integrated. Now, and know that I loaded the wrong presentation. So where there was supposed to be text on the screen talking about the different potentials, there is not. But don't worry, I do remember my talk. So now the potentials with this, I didn't want to name things like, advantages, disadvantages, pro cons, because again, I want to talk about potentials, and potentials is something that could be, a potential can be good, it can be negative. But I think the potentials with having captions and and transcripts integrated into the actual media files is that, one, it'll be easier and widespread for captions and transcripts will be shared. That makes it accessible for those that need them. And also the same with, alternative text and alt text for GIFs and static images. But another potential is that, again, by these things being integrated into these files that are, that are created by the devices themselves, this could lead to some of these things not being correct, something that we already deal with automated, and auto-generated captions and transcripts, is that the rate of error are very, very vast. As people know, when it comes to, say, YouTube auto-generated captions, those right now, things are very incorrect. Well, we can assume, here in 2032, that those hurdles have been, cleared, and that now things are, that those generated and auto captions and transcripts are, close to perfect as they can get. That's not very, that's not so much sure. That can also lead to potential tampering with, wanting to tamper with those files. So whereas, again, this is, where there are some very clear, I think, upsides and positives. There are some not so great things that could come out with, the captions and transcripts being integrated into the media files themselves. And with that, as we travel around 2032 in accessibility, we come upon AI generated code. This is something that I think, in 2032, in the next 10 years, we'll see a very much when it comes to development. Right now, GitHub has their Copilot feature, which is a artificial intelligence kind of pair programming program that helps you write code faster, with, with a lot less work. And, and I think with the GitHub Copilot and other programs that are on, that are coming out, we're going to see a huge uprise with development with AI generated code. Now, there's two kind of, I think, really big potentials with that. One is that something that I think, if you're, an accessibility specialist who is integrated into engineering teams and other development teams, of, not having to, this could lead to this like something like Copilot really helping developers make sure they're developing with accessibility in mind, as a pair, AI pair programming, platform, reminding them, yeah, you shouldn't use divs when there's other semantic elements there that, will help with accessibility, something that would be, really great, and something that we struggle with in 2022. And so I do see a fantastic potential with that, but it also comes with that these programs are still, they're AI programs, but they're still, this AI is programmed by human beings, and that leads into a lot of biases that could be put into these types of programs. So if you, leave it up to the AI to write code, and that AI is not really programmed to really consider accessibility because of whatever reason, then we are continuing to perpetuate the cycle of not building and not developing with accessibility in mind. But when we we think about AI generated code and kind of things along this nature, that brings about our next, potential and next kind of topic in 2032 to be concerned about: the death of the overlay. And so this is something that I know a great deal of you who are watching this, either right now or in the future, are really concerned about. Accessibility overlays are really something that and I don't want to get too much into very aggressive about it, but these are something that really do hinder accessibility on the internet, on the web. They are used in on especially commercial and e-commerce sites to quote bridge the gap for accessibility, provide accessibility, but a lot of these overlays, in the majority of these overlays, I should say, actually hinder accessibility, will block will block assistive technology. I know, as someone who really uses a screener mostly on my mobile phone, my smartphone, is that when I come to an overlay on a site, that usually I have to drop out of that site because my screen reader does not play nice with it. So there, a lot of these are shortcuts and not very good shortcuts. But I think with something, a potential with AI generated code, and also that is that the ease of developing and thinking and building with accessibility in mind straight away will make overlays obsolete. There is no, and honestly, I don't, I just see that as, there's no really good or, it's like, I think, or there's no really bad way to see that. I think overlays are, even in the short term, are really misguided. I think, the time that is spent, preparing, putting an overlay onto a site is best, spent actually working, really reworking and refactoring your site for accessibility. So as we say our condolences to, to the overlays, let's go on to another idea, and that is the modular internet. Now, what the modular internet means and what it is that really, applications, webs, sites that allow the users to customize, to really build their own experience, their own user experience. So, right now, something that we really, have to deal with within digital accessibility is that, making sure that we're providing accessibility for users of our products, of our platforms, and making sure that our settings, our features are accessible. And one things that when you're working on products, a lot of specialists may feel this, is that you get some people who are like, well, can't we just provide a separate site for accessibility? Really kind of towing the line into a separate but equal argument, which is no bueno and no good. And so, and something that, I think a lot of us want, like, even when you're not even, not just talking about accessibility, is as people who are on the internet, who are using a product, you're using an application, of really wanting a customized and personalized experience. And I do think that is something that will become more and more used and more built into applications and platforms, is that users have way more control over their experience. And so with that, very much potential is that it won't, we don't have to be so much concerned about, this is something that where the internet is inherently accessible because everyone can have a customized and personalized experience, which allows them to have the experience that they need to access those applications and those sites. And, that would be really great. But the potential is that we will just get more of the same with, that we have now, is that, again, things will be customizable if you fit into a particular, user base. And so you can customize to your heart's content if you fit within this small or this particular base, but everyone else doesn't. And unfortunately, that everyone else will usually include people, disabled people. And so that's the thing with the modular web. It would be great to have everyone to be able to customize their experiences the way they, the way they want to, the way they need to, the way they can have the best experience, the best access. But that doesn't do any good if all that customization and that personalization is really still just geared towards a certain population. And so continuing on with our stroll through 2032, we get to mobile first and only mobile. Right now, when it, mobile, technology, mobile devices are, in just the last really, 10, 15 years have really, went from something that was, a novelty and very few people had, to being the main, access to the internet, to technology that people have. And I think what we're going to get now is, again, I don't think that's going to change. I think what's going to really happen is that we're just going to now get, in 2032, more of that, everything will be geared towards mobile technology, mobile devices. And even less in that given that many people, even now, their access to the internet is through smartphones and mobile tech and mobile devices only, that will get a lot of businesses and companies who will forego desktop experiences, desktop applications for only the mobile experience and mobile applications. And the potential is that this could bring the prices right now. It is for the most part cheaper in some cases to have a smartphone. You can, and I'm not just talking about iPhones, or really kind of top of the line Androids, but you can get a smartphone for $150, $100, even less than that, like depending used and anything like that. There's really mobile and smartphones are accessible, are affordable, and desktops. You can definitely get really good desktops for really cheap. But I think with mobile technology, it will really bring down it can bring down prices. It'll make things a lot more affordable. But there are a lot of people whose disabilities makes mobile devices not really something that they accessible to them. And if we really kind of do mobile first and only mobile, like a lot of the internet will be further inaccessible to people who may not be able to access and utilize mobile technology, no matter the price point or the costs. So that's one thing that could really kind of put this mobile revolution and really a mobile first kind of future into it could to have some issues. And continuing on, the rise of wearable technology. And I do want to describe this, the background of this slide. This slide has a person wearing I want to say like a mechanical kind of like, it's not a mechanical suit, it's I guess a smart suit, which helps them utilize their body to effectively lift very heavy weights and materials that are a lot larger, like a lot heavier, that they could do without any sort of assistance. And so right now, in 2022, when we think about wearable technology, it's usually pretty much limited to VR sets and Apple smartwatches and things like that. That's the majority of what wearable technology is. The suit that I described of the person in the slide that's wearing, that's something that is being, it's going through trials, that is being utilized on a small scale in companies, especially large scale industrial factories right now, but not really something that's widespread to majority of the public. I do see that, I think in 2032, that we will have a lot more different kind of wearable technology, with kind of these smart suits, with, things, like, not just like VR, but like the Google Glass that, in the past, that something a lot of people joked about when Google Glass, but, things like that coming about. A lot of different, different technology, wearable technology that is being connected to people, and that will, keep them connected and allow them to, utilize the internet, utilize technology, for body modifications. And with that, that has the potential, as a good example is the person using that smart kind of suit to do their job and be able to carry weights far beyond their capacity. and other sort of things of, I know there are some, wearable headsets that allow people who do have visual impairments, who do have some sight, to see at a clear, to see, to have more visual accuracy. But along with, wearable technology, that does, again, make, depending on the, the disability, that makes things inaccessible, where you're having wearable technology that, that may be, what happens if you have a smart suit and someone that has a mobility issue, and, that smart suit is trying to force them to do a motion that is a hindrance to them. There is this upside of where everything is being worn, and being included on a person, that can really not only cause barriers because of someone's disability, but could also potentially cause further and more severe harm to them. And with that, kind of going a little bit further into wearable technology, we have this this next slide of put a chip in it, the brain-computer dilemma. And on this slide is a graphic of a person that has a monitor with the loading, that has a loading symbol on it as a head, and they're kind of in a meditative type pose. This is something that, right now is, where implanting devices, computer chips, kind of, wearable technologies inside of, people's heads. That is something that is, really is in the, kind of research stage of, and there's been certain people who have, CEOs of companies who have talked about doing widespread human trials. But this is something that I do think in 10 years that we're going to see happen, not just, on a research basis or, limited trial, human trial basis, but widespread with kind of consumer technology. And this one, I really don't have, where I see a lot of positives in it, especially when you're, doing modifications that, include modifying, your, your brain structure, that that have to be, implanted, that, gives access, for a consumer-based, purpose, not for, medical or, purpose. And, and one of the main kind of, I feel, kind of somewhat negative potentials is for people who have cognitive disabilities, anxiety issues. I'm someone with, a very, anxiety, who has a social anxiety disorder. And I can only imagine what could happen if I had a device in my head that is, projecting things to me, or even, doing, causing me to, see things that are not there, and that could potentially be controlled by other people. And I know I'm, starting to, go more in what is, a very sci-fi, fiction route, but really this is not fiction. There's things, where this is what we're really pretty much at that reality. And in 10 years, in 2032, we're really, that reality is that fiction is, and the theory is, reality. It's probably going to be close to reality. So there are, there could be potentials of, again, as trying to look at potential upsides of, well, that causes, to have really customized and personalized experiences, with that module web. There's a book called Feed. I'm blanking on the author, where the whole thing is that you had a feed connected straight into your brain, and it caused you to have all those customized and personalized experiences, especially it came with advertisement. But it slowly started to, to see beyond just advertising and really affect behavior and personality. Now that's, and that's something to be concerned with, especially when it comes to with disability, especially disabilities that affect cognitive, and functions and, mental health issues. So with that, that's kind of our look at 2032 and some potentials of what we could expect when it comes to digital accessibility, some of the issues and concerns that we might have, some of the things that, we, as an accessibility professional specialist that we will have to start dealing with within the field. And so we'll say goodbye to 2032 and come back to 2022. And, with this, I just want to say that, the reason for this talk, I wanted, there really is, when it comes to accessibility, there really is that the focus on the here and the now of the present, and then some look at the past. But I really want something I really want to see more people do is start to look towards the future, and not in a, everything will be more of the same, but, some of the upsides, but, but also some of the concerns that might come about, because, while, yes, we have a lot to do now, we can't ignore the future, because if you ignore the future, eventually it's going to be the present. And we really do need to think more about those, ideas, and kind of think about the potentials, both good and, and bad, about what awaits us, in 2032, 2042, 2052. I don't know, I don't know where I'm going to be in the end, and I don't know where the world will be, but but it's something that we need to think about. And so that is kind of in this talk. I want to maybe open it up to some questions. I don't really know. I don't really know where the Q&A is, because I can't really see it.
That's okay, Crystal. Rob, I can go through some. Send some your way. We had some great questions come through. Thank you, everybody, for posing those. There were a couple of clarifying questions. One about overlays in general. So could you go into a little bit more about what you meant when you were talking about overlays?
Yes, and for me that. So accessibility overlays are, these are kind of like plugins or widgets that are used on sites to help bring accessibility to inaccessible sites. So if you have, say, like a e-commerce site, you'll a lot of times you'll see an overlay put on that, and these are supposed to provide accessibility settings for you, to say if you are someone who's blind or low vision, so it'll provide an integrated screen reader. If you are someone that that has seizures, it will stop motion. Provide, if you're someone that that can't, has an impairment of seeing certain kind of colors, it says that it'll put on certain modes to provide, take off the colors so you can see those colors. The thing is that with these kind of plugins and widgets, a lot of times what they're supposing that they are helping, which is solve for accessibility on for kind of especially e-commerce sites or any sort of sites, they don't really, because one, a lot of times they can interfere with assistive technology that people, as I said, I use a screen reader, especially you know, not all the time, but you know, there are a lot of times now I do need to use the screen reader, and I especially use screen reader on my phone. And a lot of times I will go to a site, it has a it'll have a overlay, and especially if those overlays are really integrated badly, it can really cause my screen reader to kind of to really malfunction. And so I have a choice. Do I have to, stop my screen reader, or do I have to and use theirs, or pretty much, continue on with my screen reader, and then I don't use that site. And that's the thing that a lot of companies are not considering, is that they're like, well, this screen reader will help, this will bring us more people, more customers and things like that. But when that, happens, like, if I have to choose using the assistive technology that I am comfortable with in a overlay that's providing a unknown screen reader, I'm going to opt out of that, experience of that, making that purchase if I can. And so really it's really accessibility overlays really don't solve for accessibility. They create more issues than they do. And really the focus should be on improving and dealing with accessibility issues. A lot of times it's said that, well, we're doing that so we can, but and this is something that is anecdotal to me. Most of the times I see when companies use accessibility overlays, they stay up there for years. It's a way to kind of navigate around to, try to speed run accessibility, but not really a good speed run.
Awesome, Crystal. Thank you so much. There was one other clarifying question that I'll pose, and then we'll move into some others that might want to dig a little deeper. Could you repeat what you were referring to, or what you meant when you talked about modular internet?
Yes. So modular internet is about kind of allowing users, people, like users to a site or an application, to really customize their user experience beyond just the settings that you kind of, that you get with a site now, of like, well, you can, it really allows way more customization, even more than we see. Like if you need, text to be a certain way, if you need, if you want, a more, do you want a more visual experience? Do you want a more auditory experience? Do you want, allowing that, people kind of pick and choose what they want? Because right now it is limited in what that can be provided custom, that can be customized for a user. And it's very sad. And that's the limitations is, kind of because of code and, and kind of how you have to build things, where you want to make sure that, the balance between, providing all these kind of components and customizable, modular settings versus, the profit and the time and the time and the expense of that. So the modular internet is where you have more customization, and that customization is provided in the hands of the user. So I know it kind of sounds a little bit, so just pretty much, it's a fancy way to say that things are become even more, allows people to be even more customized in a far greater way than things are now.
So along those same or very similar lines, there's a question: how do you think we will get to a personalized and customized experience if all you can do is customize an already rendered interface, which is where we are right now?
The thing is that we can do that, but it's very limited, and it's still kind of, we can do that now, but it's still on a very limited scope. And a lot of time, and a lot of, I think a lot of, applications and, and platforms will not provide as much, again, as much customization and much modification that can be handled by the user, because of the amount of development, time and and expense that can go into it. I think now, I think as say with, AI generated code, as that becomes a little bit easier and faster to code, to develop things, that will allow companies, allow applications to provide even more customization. So beyond what, kind of where there are some applications right now, yes, you have a very, they allow you to do so much, but that is limited, those experiences are limited, whereas I do see in the next 10 years, that will be on a much wider scale, with to a base of that, for people who are not even kind of, who are people who are like, who would say that they're not tech savvy, and allow them to customize their experiences on a very wide scale, kind of in a way, I guess, how MySpace, the kind of ancestor of social media really allowed you to do so much to your profile. And it was very, to the point with that, when you could do so much there, that it really became very chaotic. And a lot of companies, a lot of applications went away from that type of stuff, and then it gave everyone a same sort of like, this is your experience. You can do very, very limited sort of things to it. And I think, and now I do think we're going to get back into, and because, now the populace is more, I think, is more tech savvy in how the basis, the fundamentals of someone, who is, alive right now in technology is very far more advanced than someone that was really who was on the internet when it really first came out. So I do see that we're going to, get more of that customization that comes about, because it's because it becomes cheaper, less time consuming, and because people really are clamoring for it.
So another one, we'll go back to transcripts. And the question is there a potential concern around transcripts picking up too many or missing out on important background noises? Or would you think that these would still be manually added? And there's just a note. Honestly, I'm thinking about Stranger Things and creative, but maybe over the top subtitles they had going on in the last season.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I do think that that there is a potential, like, either you will get where it will auto-generate, these files will auto-generate, and it will pick up on every single thing, and it will add all this unneeded context, because again, I do think this is only, this is 10 years in the future, so I don't think it would be so much, it will still be, I will see this, I do think we'll start to see this stuff integrated into these files, and I do think it will be more of like, everything is, is genuine. It's like, okay, the AI will solve, like, it hears a noise, it'll interpret what that noise is. And I don't think AI will be at the point where it will be able to pinpoint what a sound is. It'll have a library of sounds, and it will, make the best, comparison of, this is a sound of a bell, but it's not, but it'll say the sound, it could just, it could transcribe a sound of a church bell when it's a bell on a bicycle. And so you will get more where the actual vocal, like someone talking, might be, you won't get as much errors with that. But when you start to have the ambient sounds, I'm forgetting, there's a more technical word about kind of the kind of surrounding sounds, that could be more that can be less accurate. And then we'll start to, again, I do think we'll have the price tiers of like, well, do you have a camera that it's like, all it will is just do, it'll do voice, and that's it, and then so it still won't, these things won't be super sophisticated, and that brings up a whole lot of issues. And I think a whole lot of issues because of just with AI, because a lot of people think AI is the zenith of, you know, of technology, and it solves for everything. And as we know right now, that is not the case.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a little bit, I think, bigger question
Mhm.
that pose a lot of what you talked about in terms of disability futurism are tech solutions, better tools and AI that can embed accessibility and reduce manual oversight. What might Access Futurism say about how society understands disability and disabled people? How will we talk about disability change in 10 years?
Yeah, and I did keep that, you know, I didn't go super deep into that, given that this is a, you know, a web accessibility. But I do think, you know, what I would hope to see is someone really run with this is that when it comes to, because right now we've when it comes to the, I think, kind of the larger, you know, thoughts and opinions and ideas about disability, it really is of like your, you know, it, you're limited in one area of what you can do, so you're limited in all areas. That's how you know, honestly, I see a lot of, you know, kind of misconceptions, stereotypes with this. You know, it's like, well, like where I'll see the stereotype of, well, if you have a, you know, disabled people don't go into the internet. And it's like, you know, and it's a vast, you know, station of that, you know, because it's like, well, you are, you know, you have an impairment in one area, so obviously throw the whole person away. And I'm saying that, and that sounds very harsh, but that's what a lot of people do think. And what I want, you know, and I think what I would like to see now is that, yes, disability is not, you know, disabled people are not going away. This, you know, and, you know, due to like things of pandemic, the no, you know, disabled people, the number there grows. And, you know, as people get older, you know, they, you know, a lot of people become disabled. And I think of the understanding that, you know, having disability really, you know, is not something inherently negative in, you know, in a person. It doesn't make a person, you know, morally deficient or, you know, or anything like that. And a impairment in one area is not something to, you know, it it doesn't, you know, it doesn't mean, you know, you can't do something in that particular, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, it really, we start to think of and explore what disability means beyond the disability. And we really, you know, and people are thought of as, you know, it's, so mainly I'm just really wanting to, you know, think about the future, think about, you know, what people can do, taking, you know, with their, you know, with their disability, and you know, beyond just of limitations.
Well, I think that's, I wanted to try to end on that. I think we will unfortunately end on that question. We have a bunch of other questions, and I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to get through all of them. But I thought that tied into as well, you were talking about the systems that build AI, right? And having some of that bias creep in because it's human beings who are teaching the AI to think. So I think that there's the broader question is a really important one as well. Crystal, thank you so much.